right, so we're going to move on to our next speaker, twosome. We have two people from the Palos Verdes Estate City Council. We have Kenny Kao and Sandy Davidson. Kenny has been serving his first term. Well, actually, they're both serving their first term on the City Council. Kenny was raised here in Palos Verdes Estates. He received his law degree at Berkeley and began his legal career before returning to Palos Verdes Estates with his wife, Alicia, to raise a family and to give back to the community. So we'll start with Kenny and then I'll introduce Sandy.
Thanks very much, Ann. And I also just want to commend Judy Mitchell for her many years of service to Rolling Hills Estates. Everybody on the entire peninsula and beyond is going to miss Judy and her service. So thank you so much for your many years. And I want to thank this organization for inviting me back. I'd actually like to yield most of my time to my colleague, Councilmember Davidson, because I feel I was just with you guys not too long ago in May. Thanks for inviting me back. I must have done something okay in order to be invited back to your picnic, but I don't see enough people eating sandwiches out there. I just downed mine a minute ago. But I would just say briefly, you know, City of Palos Verdes Estates, we're in a state of rebuilding our staff. Just a month ago, we appointed Laura Guglielmo as our new city manager. For any of you with any experience with the City of Los Angeles, she had spent the previous 20 years with the City of Los Angeles in various high-level positions, and she has a lot of hiring to do. And beyond that, I would just like to note for this group that there was actually a Black Lives Matter protest about a month ago, and it was a very peaceful protest. And it lasted over the course of several days. Our own police department did an outstanding job of keeping the peace and allowing protesters to make their case. And there was a lot of incredible, very, quite frankly, touching moments between our police department and a lot of the protesters. A lot of that credit goes to our interim chief of police, Dan Dreiling, who after being our active chief for 10 years, took about an 8-year retirement break, and we just brought him back. So he's doing a really great job, and I've been able to have personal conversations with him about his perspective on race relations and social justice. And I know that as far as the 8 can't wait policies that have been highly discussed, I talked to our chief of police about that, and in fact, our police force has already been doing a lot of those 8 can't wait things. And so, you know, he's just a great leader of our police department. We're lucky to have him. We're lucky to have our own force at this point. And with that, I'll leave the balance of the time to Councilmember Davidson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny. And for Councilman Sandy Davidson, he's also serving his first term. As I say, he was raised in New York City. He attended SUNY Buffalo for his medical degree and later trained to be an eye surgeon. Now he's practicing ophthalmology in the Riviera Village, and he's been in PVE since 1980. So here's Sandy, and we'll let you talk for a few minutes.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ann. And I just want to shout out to Rasha. If you remember Rasha, but you taught my son Josh trigonometry. So you may or may not remember him.
I remember. I remember. And I think Joan was on the school board at the same time.
She was. She was. Well, my name is Sandy Davidson. My real name is Sanford Davidson. I'm going to announce today that I am going to rerun for City Council in PVE Estates for many, many reasons, but I won't get into that today. I want to profusely thank Congressman Liu, State Senator Ben Allen, and State Assemblyman Muratsuchi for keeping in touch with our PVE Estates citizens via Zoom. Extraordinarily helpful. The topics that they've talked to our residents about have been COVID issues, safety issues, and the affordable housing issues at hand, which a bit later I'll be talking about. In PVE Estates, our top priority is safety. both health-related and personal. During this pandemic, I've seen with my own patients as well as our residents very much in need of reassurance that PV is doing its most to create a safe environment consistent with the LA County health guidelines. And again, I'd like to shout out to Supervisor Hahn specifically for her remarkable assistance in this area, helping our city. Now, safety also includes our police. In previous states, I am a major league advocate for our private police department. They are intertwined with our historic heritage and safe community practices. To my knowledge, there has never, ever been a case of any kind of racial incident with the police department in Palos Verdes Estates. Now, the police themselves and the ancillary staff of theirs have done their utmost to visit our elderly and provide them with any food or other assistance they require. I'm proud to support our police force and applaud all the first responders, especially the firemen and paramedics who continue doing their brave and selfless jobs. I remember during training driving around in an ambulance, and even in those days, before COVID, it was trying because you're getting close up to some very, very sick people. On the state level, our residents are looking closely at the bills that can change or destroy our local zoning laws, allowing multiple units and or parcels requiring high density housing. Now, while this fits some California cities, it really doesn't work in previous states. I'm all for affordable housing, but many of the legislative bills are not focusing on affordability, but rather on density. We need to focus more on affordability without losing sight of local city jurisdiction. Our general plan and zoning for previous states were set long, long ago, very long ago. We are, as well as RPV, Redondo, Torrance, and others, really not in favor of negating our zoning laws. I look forward to working with the state in meeting the affordable housing goals without denying city control. Now, during this pandemic, the state bills are passing from committee directly to the floor for a vote. This has taken away many levels of discussion and amendments, and I strongly suggest putting these bills off until such time as these discussions can take place. The bills I'm referring to are Assembly Bill 725, 1279, 2345, 3040, and Assembly Bill 3107, and State Bill 902, which is probably gets the most attention, 1102, 995, and 1085. I'm really hoping that the state can find a way to incentivize affordable housing in communities that welcome multiple dwelling units, rather than asking cities to abandon their own zoning ordinances. Let's empower California cities to listen to their residents and keep local control over their city's zoning. I thank you all for inviting me. I actually do miss the outdoor environment because I sort of enjoyed screaming across the lawn, but thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on. We're running a little late here, and if you have questions, you can always contact the council people directly. We're going to move on to Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified School Board member Megan Crawford. She's a 6th grade teacher in Redondo Beach, and she's serving her 2nd year on the PVP USD board. She is notably the only teacher on the board. July 1st, the PVP USD held their town hall about school reopening planning. So I'm sure she has a lot to tell us today.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. As Supervisor Han kind of said earlier, we do have some new updates in regards to opening schools, and there has been a lot going on over the past few months with schools and guidelines and protocols that we have to follow. So to just give you a little bit of a rundown, because I know I only have a short amount of time. So basically, schools over the past few essentially weeks have gotten guidelines from the California Department of Education. We also got just recently some protocols from the LA County Department of Public Health that set forward not recommendations, but more so kind of protocols that we have to follow when school reopens. And then most recently on Friday, Governor Newsom announced that schools that are in counties that are located on the monitoring list right now, according to the California Department of Public Health, cannot reopen physically for on-site instruction until the counties are off of the monitoring list for 14 days. And so right now, LA County is on the monitoring list basically because of our case numbers and the percent positivity rate that we have. And so schools in LA County cannot reopen until LA County is off of that monitoring list for 14 days. And then we can work with our local health officers to kind of determine the course of action there. And so that was just on Friday. So as of now, it looks like we are going to be starting with distance learning for all students. There is an exception with Governor Newsom's orders that it seems like some elementary schools can reopen if a superintendent tries to have a waiver and presents that to the local Department of Public Health, and they can kind of examine the more local data and see if that's acceptable. At this point, I do not know if Dr. Turnus is looking into that waiver for elementary schools, but as of right now, it seems like we are going to be operating with distance learning for the foreseeable future until we can get off of that monitoring list. And so there's a couple questions that parents have. Okay, so what can I do with my child? And so Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified is going to offer essentially two options for you. So one, you can opt into a distance learning option for your child. And maybe these parents don't feel comfortable with their student going to school probably for the whole year. And so we have purchased some curriculums, K through 12, that are meant to be specifically taught online. And so I want to talk about in the spring that was kind of like crisis teaching and crisis learning. Everyone had to kind of figure things out overnight and literally on a weekend on how to kind of shift what are we doing in the classroom to now virtually doing everything online. And we had a lot of people who did great and students that did great, but also we have had other teachers and students that struggled during that time. And so what happened in spring is not going to happen in the fall. We have curriculum specifically that is meant for online. Also in the California budget that was released, there are specific provisions that have to be met in regards to the amount of instructional minutes that need to be met each day, daily attendance, daily live interaction with students. So there's a lot of things that will be put in place to make sure that students are receiving rigorous and high quality education and really requiring them to log in online. And so if you are thinking of having your child do distance learning all year, you can have that option. And right now we're looking at a semester-long commitment. So basically you would commit now until December, you would want your child to be online, and then you can reevaluate for the spring semester. On the other side, if you don't want to opt your child into distance learning, we are going to have a hybrid option available for you when we can go back to the classroom. And so the hybrid option means that essentially 50% of the learning would take place on campus and 50% would take place online. At our school board meeting on Wednesday, if you'd like to watch, Dr. Turnus is going to go into the details and what that would look like for elementary, middle, and high school students. Generally, it looks like when we go back to campus that students would be on campus like 2 days a week. It's a little bit confusing with the schedule, so I would just like you to watch on Wednesday, and there's still kind of tweaking things that are happening. But students wouldn't necessarily be on campus for lunchtime. It would be a grab and go option that they would eat off of campus to keep in accordance with our social distancing that we need to do. Students would be required to wear masks as well, so keeping that in mind. So again, I would encourage you, if that applies to you, your children or anyone that you know, watch the meeting on Wednesday so that you can see the details for each. We are then going to have another town hall.
When is that meeting, Megan? Megan, when is that meeting that we can watch?
Where is it?
Is that meeting? What time is the meeting?
Oh, sorry, Wednesday at 6:30. So you can just go to pvpusd.net, and there's a live stream at 6:30. You can also go to the website beforehand if you'd like to submit any written comments or questions, or you can also join the Zoom live to ask questions. And then we will be holding another virtual town hall on Monday, July 27th to go over any additional questions that parents have. And then essentially parents would have about a week to make your choice, whether to enroll your child online for the completely distance learning option, or they would sign up for the hybrid model when we can go back in person. So those are kind of my updates right now. So again, that's Wednesday the 22nd at 6:30 for the meeting. And then the town hall would be Monday the 27th, and that time is to be determined.
Okay, thank you. We have a pre-question that came in, and I think you answered it, but I'm going to say it a little differently. So you had said the difference between when you went to online teaching in March is going to be different because now you'll be able to plan for it, or that it's more planned. So the question had to do with, since you taught via distance learning, and since March, March to June,
yeah.
What was it like for you? And, I know you're in a different district where you're teaching, but what was it like for you, and how do you see coming back this fall, how it will be different?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, I think for everyone it was hard. Like, we didn't sign up to teach teach remotely. We all want to be in the classroom with students. And it is unfortunate that we're in this situation, and I hope that people do start following the rules and wearing their masks and social distancing so that we can get this virus out of control. But this, I think, is the safest option for everyone at this point. And so it was hard to, number one, to get students engaged. Unfortunately, I didn't really have a lot of students log in and attend my class meetings. They did more asynchronous instruction and videos that I would put up, but, and I think that happened with other teachers as well, at least in my district. That was very sad for all of us. And we didn't have that much time to plan. And so the hope is in the fall that now that we have this time to plan, and that we, again, are purchasing this online curriculum that is meant to be taught online, and that there can really be standardization for teachers and students instead of, parents and teachers kind of going all over the place with all these different platforms. It's just very chaotic. And so the hope is that with this new curriculum and this new planning in place, it will be a lot better than it was. And of course, this is not going to replace any instruction in person. We all know that kids learn best in the classroom. It's just not safe to do so at this point. And so I hope that if we can get the virus under control, then we can all go back in the classroom sooner. So.
Okay, so
yeah,
we could talk about this.
I know.
But you gave us some good data in terms of town halls that are coming up and people to get their information. So I'm going to move on to our next speaker. But thank you so much for joining us. So our next speaker is California State Senator Ben Allen. He represents us in the 26th district. He's championed election integrity, consumer safety, student debt, religious discrimination, barriers to affordable housing, among many other issues. He has joined us here in the past, and we love having him back. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Ann, and thank you everybody for participating. This is a wonderful, I mean, it's the best we've got, but it's actually, I was texting back and forth with Janice, and we were just reflecting on how valuable it is for us to get to hear from all the different leaders from every level of government. I always learn a lot. I mean, it's so great to hear you, Megan, who used to work in my office. Here you are on the school board. We're I know you've been given one of the most difficult jobs in government now, trying to deal with the difficult issues associated with distance learning and what we do in terms of reopening, if at all. So it's been difficult. We at the state level have been facing a whole set of logistical challenges as well. Many of you may know we went on a quarantine recess for several months after March, then came back to vote in a very strange set of circumstances. I mean, they had everyone wearing masks and very intensely separated. We would use the full Senate chamber on a regular basis just to hold committee hearings. And we were able to pass a budget. We were able to pass House of Origin bills out. And then we were about to go back to session on Monday. And then all of a sudden there was an outbreak on the Assembly side. And in fact, a couple of our colleagues came out with COVID, including our good friend Autumn Burke, who represents a portion of territory just a little north of the peninsula. And Tom Lackey, who's another friend who's ended up in the hospital as a result of COVID. He's now out of the hospital, but is thank God recovering. But we basically had to then delay the restart of the session, and we're in a bit of a holding pattern, though it looks as though we'll be restarting again in a couple of weeks. That being said, people are being asked to significantly reduce their bill packages. Some are doing a better job of doing that than others, but we are all now going through the process of culling the bills, trying to better understand which bills ought to move forward, which bills ought to be held, not because they're bad bills, but because we're just not really in a place right now where we can kind of logistically handle the sort of typical bill load because of all the challenges associated with trying to pass bills in a COVID era. Some people say, why don't we just do remote voting? That is something that we've spent some time looking into. There are some lawyers, especially a couple very close to the speaker, who really do believe, and there's a whole debate happening over this, that going to remote voting would jeopardize the bills that we pass through remote voting because of several aspects of law, including and probably most significantly the Munger initiative that passed a couple of years ago that talks about it's a transparency measure, and it actually did some good things, I think, but it also put in some language that has added a whole set of complexities to the idea that we might be able to remotely vote. That being said, we have been pursuing a number of things to try to help address the COVID crisis. There's been a number of bills associated with keeping people in their homes. There's obviously, we've been working hard with our federal partners to try to get money out through first of all, the CARES Act. We're obviously hoping for a significant HEROES Act to pass through the U.S. Senate. And I want to thank Ted and the other folks who are on the call representing federal partners for their work in getting the HEROES Act passed out of the House. We've, of course, also been up to our ears in trying to assist people with unemployment insurance and the EDD systems, which have been so, I gotta say, I mean, really underwhelming in terms of their ability to handle this admittedly unique and unprecedented crisis. It wasn't built to deal with a situation like this, there's no question. But man, they've really struggled. A lot of people, of course, have gotten in and out and they've gotten their assistance and they're fine. But my office is regularly assisting people who have just been really struggling with getting the assistance that they need under EDD. If you are having trouble with unemployment insurance, with getting through to the EDD folks, if you've tried all other avenues and you're just struggling, please do call our office. We have been very successful in helping to break through a couple of bottlenecks that have existed for a number of my constituents It's unfortunate that you'd have to call legislative office to do that, but unfortunately it's become necessary. And so I very much encourage people to reach out to our office if there's any, if there's any challenge that people are having with EDD. Janice mentioned vote by mail, and I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for pushing out vote by mail. We now have kind of a similar initiative at the state level that the governor's announced, and we're going to be having everybody voting by mail. We will still keep the vote centers because I really do believe ultimately, and I think the governor and the Secretary of State do as well, that there are a lot of people for whom vote by mail is not going to be a great option, but there's no question that we ought to make vote by mail as absolutely easy and accessible as possible. It is so crazy. It is so crazy that this has become such a partisan issue. It's interesting, if you look at just the West, for example, yes, Oregon and Washington have been vote by mail for years. They're both blue states, but so is Montana and I think it's Idaho. I think both of them or Wyoming, one of those two, is also 100% it's been vote by mail, and those are red states. Nate Silver was on TV this morning on This Week, on Channel 7, talking. It was very interesting. He basically said that Democrats and Republicans alike have done very well voting vote by mail. But if anything, the president is doing himself a disservice. And so, once again, by talking down vote by mail so much, it actually will likely harm Republicans' ability to get, to really spur a widespread get out the vote effort using vote by mail. Before Donald Trump started talking all this trash about vote by mail, there was high levels of confidence in vote by mail amongst all portions of the population. Now we continue to see high levels of confidence on our side, but very low levels of confidence on the Republican side. And in an election that's going to increasingly rely on vote by mail for public safety reasons, they are potentially shooting themselves in the foot. And Nate Silver made that point today. So we're also working, one issue that's become front and center in the legislature has been criminal justice reform measures, and we're certainly working hard in that area, and that certainly dovetails nicely on the work that Janice mentioned earlier. But there's work underway. I'm a co-author of a bill, for example, to get rid of the the chokehold that was used against George Floyd and others. We're also working on a bill to make it so that officer-involved shootings end up being reviewed by a panel of experts at the Department of Justice. There's a lot of really challenging conflicts of interest associated with the current state of affairs where these decisions are made by the DAs. The interesting thing is the DAs themselves want these cases to be kicked up to the state because it puts them in a more comfortable position knowing that there will be an independent body reviewing these cases. And so that's another thing that's being worked on as we speak. Two final things I want to mention because I'm deeply involved with a bunch of environmental bills. I'm happy to answer questions about those. Right now I'm in the middle of a bill that we just got out of the Senate to phase out the use of PFAS, which is a dangerous chemical, a carcinogen that's been widely used in firefighting foam and firefighting equipment. It ends up causing cancer for our firefighters, ends up getting in the groundwater and creating a lot of dangerous results. There's a fascinating and depressing film called The Devil We Know that you can watch on Netflix talking about DuPont and the extent to which they basically polluted an entire portion of the Ohio River, and kids were being born with deformities, people were getting cancer because of the use of this chemical that unfortunately is widely used in firefighting equipment. The truth is we know that there are better alternatives, and finally the firefighters have come on board and we're now working together to try to get a bill through that I'm deeply involved with. I'm the author of. And that's one of the bills I'm very involved with trying to reduce our plastics waste. We're hoping to get a bill across the finish line this year relating to waste management and reducing single-use plastics pollution that I'm certainly very committed to. And then finally, John Lewis, what an incredible guy. I was so lucky to hear him at the MLK breakfast a few years ago at the Labor Fed. That was a very special experience for me. I didn't have quite as cool experience, camping out on the House floor as Janice did, but nonetheless, just to be able to feel that energy from him, we've really lost a lion. And locally, we've not lost a lion, but certainly someone who we're going to miss in public office, and that's Judy Mitchell. I got to tell you, Judy has just been such a fantastic leader. She has led with integrity, with heart, with soul, with intelligence. She's been such a leader both for the local peninsula community, but also region-wide with her air work. I saw a question on the chat that talked about whether I guess unfortunately I don't think you can stay on the air board because it's tied to your position on the council. But if we can find another way to keep you involved in any possible way, I want to figure out how to do that, because we really have gained as a community and as a region so much from Judy's just even-keeled, big-hearted, smart leadership. And I just want to tip my hat to her.
Thank you so much, Ben. No one should ever compare me to John Lewis, but I'm very grateful for your remarks.
Thank you so much, Senator Allen, and I kudos to Judy Mitchell as well. Are there any, some of the questions I know you've talked about before, so just for the sake of time, we're running a little late. If you don't mind, I'm gonna move on. Is Assemblymember Muratsuchi on?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Assemblymember Muratsuchi represents 66th Assembly District. He spoke to us last month about the homelessness crisis, as well as did Senator Allen come in, so that was very good. PV Dems recently supported the Visions Coalition letter to California Senate Pro Tem Tony Atkins in support of Muratsuchi's bill, AB 345, which will provide a minimum setback distance between oil and gas activities to homes, schools, hospitals, and parks. So we are very proud to support that. And here is Muratsuchi.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Ann, and thank you all, Palos Verdes Democrats, as well as all of the distinguished guests on this call. I mean, it's great to see everyone on the call on this beautiful day. I know that it's only dedicated Democrats that are zooming on these calls on such a beautiful day, and so I'm glad to be able to join all of you. I wanted to, well, in terms of the state report, I think that's one of the good things about following a smart, hardworking state legislator like Ben Allen, is that he's covered so much that he's taken a lot of what I was planning to talk about. So that makes my job a lot easier. But
you talk about all the incredible work you're doing to save the people of Redondo Beach.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
And also all the setbacks. You're such a great champion on oil stuff.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I was gonna pick up on the oil discussion by picking up where Ben left off, which is to join the chorus of people to thank Judy Mitchell for her dedicated service. Judy was, along with Janice, were the two lone voices that fought to eliminate the hydrofluoric acid on the South Coast Air Quality Management Board. I really I've enjoyed Judy, working with Judy on that, as well as so many other issues. I didn't realize, Judy, that you were going to be stepping down. We're really going to miss you. Thank you for all of your work, Judy. There's a theme between what Judy and I have worked on in terms of the hydrofluoric acid issue at the Torrance Refinery, and some of the efforts that I'm working on in terms of AB 345 and other issues, which is that we're trying to fight to protect our communities from the harmful effects of oil refining or oil drilling. That was what was involved at the Torrance Refinery, of course, as many of you may know. And that's what we're trying to address with AB 345. AB 345 is seeking a minimum setback for any oil drilling from people's homes, schools, health clinics, parks, to try to protect vulnerable communities, whether it's children, whether it's the elderly, whether it's folks that patients at healthcare facilities. I mean, I think it should sound like pretty common sense public safety setbacks, but whether it's the Torrance Refinery or whether it's this bill we are facing some powerful special interests that are opposing these efforts. Again, it's not only the biggest special interest in terms of how much money they spend on lobbyists in Sacramento, big oil, but unfortunately, it's also the labor unions that represent workers in the fossil fuel industries that are that is opposing AB 345, and that's what's presenting a big challenge. I talk about this a lot, but until we figure out this just transition, how do we find good union jobs for those fossil fuel workers, especially in labor unions that are very powerful in Sacramento as well as in our nation's capital? We're going to continue this is going to be an ongoing theme in terms of how do we fight climate change? How do we fight to protect our communities from the harmful effects of oil drilling and oil development? Whether we're talking about the Torrance refinery or whether we're talking about this oil drilling. I mean, AB 345 was a bill that was inspired by folks like Dempsey Nelson and Hermosa Beach activists that fought against the proposed oil drilling to take place, hundreds of feet, just a few hundred feet from homes and parks in Hermosa Beach. And so I wanted to take that fight to the statewide level with AB 345. But again, I appreciate PV Democrats' support, but we're up against some pretty powerful groups, and we're going to have to figure out, both short-term as well as long-term, the issue of a just transition for our union workers in the fossil fuel industry. Also, Senator Allen he mentioned an effort that we're working on together. I introduced a bill, AB 353, which Senator Allen is a principal co-author, which we're basically tag teaming this bill in order to try to shut down the AES power plant, again, in Redondo Beach. I mean, we know that not only is it a huge eyesore in the Redondo Beach community, but that it has a tremendously negative environmental impact, not only in terms of the particulate, the nitrogen oxide emissions from when the AES power plant powers up, for those peak times when, we need that extra boost of power, during the energy downturns. But also, it has a huge impact on the marine environment, which is the reason why the AES power plant was slated to be closed by the end of this year. It was a 10-year policy that, folks in Redondo Beach, Ben and I, we were planning on making that transition, talking about a just transition. We helped secure $4.8 million in Proposition 68 to convert that ugly AES power plant into wetland restoration in order to create a park and a wetland, for all South Bay citizens to be able to enjoy in Redondo Beach. Unfortunately, that policy of operating the power plant has been extended, at least for another year. This was a decision made by state agencies, including the Public Utilities Commission and others, who determined that they still need what's called as a peaker plant. These power plants like the Redondo Beach plant that they deem to be necessary in order to make sure that we have the energy reliability, the grid reliability, to have sufficient energy production to be able to make sure that we can all flip the switch and turn on the lights when we need it. So Ben and I are going to be testifying at an upcoming water board hearing this week, and we're going to keep fighting to try to shut down that plant as soon as possible, so that we can move forward in building a beautiful park and restoring the wetland in Redondo Beach. There's a lot of other things that I'm working on. I mean, I'm working on trying to get broadband funding so that we can close the digital divide, make sure that all communities can deal with this new COVID-19 reality, whether it's teleworking for the over 40% of workers now who are now working from home, or distance learning. I mean, Megan Crawford was giving the update on the PV Unified School District situation. That's a conversation that my wife and I are following very closely as PV parents, as a parent of a sixth grade, our daughter who's going to be going into the sixth grade this year. I mean, we're going to have to figure out, as Megan was saying, whether we want to go elect for the hybrid learning, or whether we want to go for the full distance learning as soon as we can, get back to having those options. So those are some of the many things that I'm working on. I have a couple of other bills dealing with trying to crack down on.
I'm sorry to have to move you along, but we only have a few more minutes. Is that okay?
Of course. Thank you for the time.
I mean, I really am sorry to cut you off, but I have Congressman Liu on, and we have an installation, and
of course
we can come back for those who are going to hang out at the end. But okay. I am going to change the order a little bit here because I know Congressman Liu is on, and I know you only have a certain amount of time. So he usually does our oath. He actually does a talk and our oath. And then afterwards, we also have from the Palos Verdes Library District, 2 people who are going to, who are scheduled to speak. And I'm going to have them speak after our installation just to accommodate Congressman Liu. Okay, so Congressman Ted Liu, he represents Congressional District 33. He is here, right?
Yes, I'm here.
And he has honored the legacy of Henry Waxman, the only other congressman to represent this district since it was created in 1974. Congressman Liu has been fighting to rebuild America's infrastructure, combat climate change, and passing the COVID stimulus packages. He's been a great supporter of our club, and traditionally he has been administering the oath of office for our new board members for a number of years. So he will give us a little talk, and then we will install our board, and then we'll have a few other speakers afterwards. Congressman Liu.
Great. Well, thank you for having me on today, and I want to thank all the board members, other participants. So why don't I just first swear everybody in, and then I'll say a few words. So for the board members, if you want to raise your right hand and then repeat after me.
Please introduce the board members, if that's okay. So the board members are, for president is Kathy Bradford, so she can raise her hand or say hello. That way people can see you.
I'm here. Hello.
Okay, and then President Emeritus is Rasha Hall.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
First Vice President is Connie Sullivan. She's come back as an officer.
Hi, everyone.
Second Vice President is myself.
Hello.
Recording Secretary is Asha Shahed. Asha?
I'm sorry, Asha, say something. We need your
to say hello?
You need to unmute.
You need to unmute, Asha.
Hi.
Very good. Okay, Corresponding Secretary is Arlene Corr.
And she hasn't made it on, even though I spoke to her.
Okay, that's all right. Treasurer is Al Shadbourne. Al, can you say hello?
He's not on. He was on.
He was on.
But I'm looking at the list of participants.
He's on. Al, could you unmute, please?
Oh, there he is.
Parliamentarian is Carol Muller.
Hello.
Okay, Al, are you going to say hello or okay? Membership is Irene Silver.
Hi.
Very good. Publicity, Margaret Madonna. Margaret, You
I
wanna
don't see
unmute?
her on.
You have to unmute. Margaret. And then newsletter editor is Fraser Perkins.
Hi, everybody.
Very good. Okay, so now Congressman Liu will administer the oath. We all raise our hands.
Sure. You could raise your right hands and repeat after me. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States?
I
Yeah.
solemnly
I do.
We do.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. I'm going to keep on going. And the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the State of California, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which you are about to enter, and during such time as you hold the office of board member of the Palos Verdes Democrats.
I do.
I do.
All right.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Everybody can do their clap. Okay, so everyone can mute now and let Congressman Liu talk.
So I'll be brief. I know you're running behind. First of all, let me thank all the local elected officials, as well as my colleagues, Harley Ruda and Annette Barragan, as well as State Senator Ben Allen and Senator Muratsuchi and LA County Supervisor Janice Hahn for the terrific work that everyone is doing. We are in unprecedented times, and you've heard much about the pandemic as well as the HEROES Act that we're working on. I thought I'd just talk about one issue which recently happened, and that has to deal with what's happening in Portland now with these random federal units that are showing up and arresting people and putting them into unmarked cars. So we saw this also happen in DC, where you had a variety of different federal units show up, even though the mayor of DC opposed it, and many of them were wearing uniforms without name tags. And shortly after DC protests, I submitted legislation to address this issue. It turns out that one of the reasons that this is happening is the U.S. Marshals, under current law, can deputize pretty much anyone they want to go do different missions as a U.S. Marshal. So in D.C., they deputize a variety of different federal units, including, for example, a Bureau of Prisons unit that was out there doing crowd control. We see something similar happening in Portland. And so this week, I'll be announcing legislation I'm working on that would basically restrict the U.S. Marshals from doing this unless the governor of the state requests that help. So look forward to that coming. I know we also have on the committees, our committees have been working with each other. So the Homeland Security Committee, the Judiciary Committee in which I sit, as well as the Committee on Oversight, recently sent a letter to the Inspector Generals of both DHS as well as Department of Justice to investigate. And what we're really seeing is secret police going around our streets, basically arresting people. And that is not America. That is not something that should be happening, especially when the local authorities all oppose this. The mayor of Portland, the governor of Portland, the entire Democratic congressional delegation in Oregon, and the governor of Oregon all oppose this federal use of power, which I think is something that should not be done and hopefully won't happen in the future. So thank you again for having me on. Thank you for all you do and helping elect Democrats. And let me conclude with a little bit of good news. This week, the DCCC expanded the number of targets for flipping the House by an additional 6 seats. And that's because Donald Trump's very low poll approval ratings are now dragging down other areas, other members of Congress and incumbents with him. And so we now have an expanded battlefield, and we have states like Texas that we could flip now, as well as states such as Alaska, which is now essentially tied between Biden and Trump. And we have a congressional candidate in Alaska. Her name is Elise Galvin. She's doing quite well. And then Montana, which you normally would think of a red state, our congressional candidate is also doing well. So take a look at the expanded battlefield, and we're very excited and look forward to working with all of you as we put in a blue wave this November.
Hey, thank you. And you weren't on earlier, but we were, Congressman Berrigan also talked about what was happening in Portland. So I'm glad we started with that and we're ending with that. It's such a fiasco, and I'm glad you all are focusing on it. You saw this one question. I did send it to you earlier. I didn't know if it's on the chat. It has to do with mutual aid projects. Do you have a quick answer for that one, or?
Sure.
I could say.
Yeah, sure. So mutual aid has two meanings. One is when different agencies support each other. So when there is, for example, a wildfire that breaks out, you would have mutual aid, where it won't just be, for example, LA County firefighters. It'll be firefighters from Torrance, from Redondo Beach, from LA City. So that's one definition of mutual aid. Another definition based on this question, I think, is how do you address structural racism? And so we have seen that this pandemic has really highlighted disparities. We've seen the murder of George Floyd has highlighted racial disparities in the criminal justice system. In terms of the pandemic, we know that Native Americans, African Americans, Latinos, and Asian Pacific Islanders die at far higher rates from COVID-19. We also see, for example, in education, that there is a racial component in terms of their learning gap of children. So we see structural racism across a lot of different levels of society. And one way to try to address it is, first of all, just acknowledge it. I think a lot of people still may not acknowledge it, but with what happened with George Floyd and the demonstrations across America, I think more and more Americans are now understanding that we do have structural racism in our country. And so once you acknowledge it, then you have to look at, well, how do you fix these problems? And every area is going to be different. So how you tackle criminal justice might be somewhat different than how you tackle education versus healthcare. But clearly we need to have additional investments in a lot of these areas so that people of color are not left behind and that they don't suffer discrimination. We know that the pandemic has also resulted in increased hate crimes against Asian Americans, approximately 1,900 hate crimes now across America. So these different areas will require different ways of tackling them, but the first is just to get people to acknowledge these problems. And then there are a level of variety of different organizations that work on these issues, ranging from the NAACP to the ACLU to a number of other civil rights and organizations that fight both in courts as well as try to get legislation through. So that's my answer, and thanks for asking it.
Okay, and this, I just want to give a shout out to Therese Salvo. This was her granddaughter who just graduated, and that's who's asking the question.
Oh, great.
Okay, I'm going to move on. We have two more speakers: Palos Verdes Library District Board of Trustees President Kay Cooperman and fellow board member Rosa Easton. They're both managing the library system that is doing a lot virtually, but is now opening up for us to pick up books that we put on hold. And here is Kay Ju.
Thanks, Ann. Hi, everyone. Great to see your faces. I'm Kay Cooperman Jew, longtime member and a past president of the PV Democrats and married to your webmaster, Reggie. I'm president this year of the Palos Verdes Library District Board of Library Trustees. I'm here today with my colleague, trustee Rosa Kwon Easton, who will speak in a moment. Rosa and I are members of a 5-member elected board that hires and supervises the district's top executive, approves the district's budget, and sets district policy. We represent the taxpayers living within the district's boundaries, which basically include the whole peninsula. Back in 1929, the founders of the peninsula decided to form an independent special district to run the local library. That was before there were any cities here. And that means that unlike most libraries, we are departments, which are departments of city or county governments, our 3 libraries are run by a separate independent government entity that receives a tiny percentage of local property taxes. I'm going to turn it over now to Rosa to tell you what's been going on at the library, where this club normally holds its monthly meetings when there isn't a pandemic. and then I'll have some closing remarks. Hi, Rosa.
Hi. Thank you, everyone, for inviting us to be here today. This is my first PV Democrats meeting, and I've been so impressed by everything I've heard. So I hope to join future meetings. I'm a first-year trustee, and so I'm learning as I go, but I've been happy to see how our library has responded to this crisis. We are still closed, but the curbside pickup services are available, so you could order books online, put them on hold, and pick them up during the week. We've had over 10,000 curbside check-ins in June, so the library is active and thriving. 216 new library cards have been issued, so if you don't have a library card, I urge you to go online and get one. There is a 3-day quarantine that the staff is imposed on books that come back to the library, so you don't have to worry that you're going to pick up a book that you know, might not be safe. Our online services have increased tremendously. There's ebooks, audiobooks, you name it. Everything, a lot of the services that were provided by physically going to the library are now provided online. We have the summer reading program that's still going, adults, teens, kids. We have virtual programs like story time and adult programs as well. Our online used book sales is still strong, and I just got a text from the executive director saying that if you have books that you want to donate, since we've all been home reading lots of books, there will be a Saturday the 25th at the Peninsula Center Library from 11 to 2 p.m. in the underground parking lot area. You can drop off books and someone will come, and you won't have to get out of your car. You just open your trunk, someone will come and grab your book. So continue to support the library during this time. We don't know when we will reopen. There is a reopening committee, but when we do go back, it's probably going to look more like a browsing library where there are no table and chairs. You go in and do what you need to do. There will be sneeze guards at checkout and at the reception. And just to chime in about John Lewis this week, the library has come up with a racial equity statement. It's on our PVLD website. Trustee Ju assisted our library director and staff in coming up with this statement. And the librarians and staff have also curated a lot of books, podcasts, websites that address racism, and those are also all on our library website. So thank you for listening, and continue to support the library during this time.
Thanks, Rosa. Finally, 2 seats on the library board are up for election on November 3rd. Am I? Yeah. Last I heard, one of the incumbents is planning to run for re-election. I am the second incumbent whose seat is up for election. And as I conclude my second term on the board, I have decided not to run for re-election. I've loved my time on the board, and I encourage any of you who might be interested in holding public office to consider the library board. The filing period is open now. The library district is holding a Zoom workshop for potential candidates this Tuesday, July 21st, beginning at 7 p.m. Information for attending is on our website, www.pvld.org, or feel free to email Rosa or me with any questions. Our email addresses are on the district's website under the About Us menu. Thank you for inviting Rosa and me to today's picnic. And thanks to the outgoing board, and congratulations to the new board of the club. Thanks a lot.
And before
did I unmute?
No, I unmuted myself, and I wanted to just say a few words at the end here. Are you finished? Do you have anybody else? You need to unmute.
We're not quite at the end. So
okay.
give me a second here.
Okay.
So I just want to, we said at the very beginning that we would acknowledge some of the elected officials that have come, and we don't have time for you to speak, but I would like you to get in to just say hello and who you are and your title, just so people will know, okay? So the first one that was on board was Harold Williams from the Water Basin. Is he still on?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, so just
No.
say who you are, your title. I'm sorry, that's all I got for you, but.
Okay, no problem. I'll take it.
Wait a minute.
Harold
Wait,
Williams here.
we lost you on speaker, so let me get you back where Reggie has you on speaker. Reggie?
You can't hear me?
Okay,
Oh,
there
yeah,
you
we
go.
can hear
Okay,
you.
now we
All
hear
right,
you.
very good. Well, again, thank you very much for recognizing me and giving me an opportunity to say hello. I am Harold Williams, member of this fine club. Been a member for some time, and the name of the organization that I serve on board is the West Basin Municipal Water District. We are not the Central Basin Municipal Water District.
Right.
We are the West Basin Municipal Water District.
Okay.
Again, thank you and good news. You don't have to worry about COVID-19 in your tap water. Your tap water is safe and free of COVID-19, and we have plenty of it, so you don't have to stock bottled water for the pandemic time. But if you want to do it for the big one that's coming, please do. With that, have a great day. Stay safe, stay negative, and stay home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Okay, so the next person, I'm not sure if he's still on, was Mark Henderson, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Gardena.
Good afternoon, everyone. All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Mark Henderson, Mayor Pro Tem, City of Gardena, also a member of PV Democratic Club, as well as many other clubs in the South Bay. Married to the lovely and incomparable Nichelle Henderson, and everything, very proud of that. Don't want to stay long, but I appreciate PV Dems having this event. Is very informative and just a chance to kind of sit and see everybody's faces. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for staying for the whole time. Thank you very much. And then next we have Steve Zuckerman. He has spoken to our club before. Is Steve still on from Rolling Hills Estates City Council? There you are.
I am indeed. I thank you very much for holding this today. This event is, in my mind, kind of a threshold event for upcoming elections. So I just want everyone to remember that Rolling Hills Estates is having an election, in addition to all of the other important elections around us, not to lose attention in local matters as they look seriously at national and state matters. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And I also, I got a note from, is there a Nichelle? Connie, you were telling me that there was another person here that is an elected official.
Nichelle Henderson is running.
For is she on?
Community College Board. She was on. I don't know if she's still on.
Okay, all right, so we'll move on. And then we had already introduced.
There she is.
And here you are. Oh, okay, you are there.
I am.
Okay,
hello, everyone.
Just say who you are and what you're running for.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Nichelle Henderson. I'm married to Mayor Pro Tem Mark Henderson. I'm a candidate for seat 5 on the Los Angeles Community College District Board in November.
Oh, very good. Oh, and I'm glad I got, I didn't realize you were Mark. If I had known your last name, I would have connected it. Thank you so much for keeping on with us. Okay, and we'll have you on again. And then that is all in terms of, because we already introduced Sergio Carrillo at the very beginning. I kind of doubt if he's still on, right? Okay, so we're gonna move on. We had our goodbye, our going off was with Kathy Bradford, our new president. So Rasha, did you have something to say before Kathy does her closing remark?
Yes, I do. I just wanted to say thank you, Ann. This was a fantastic picnic. Really, I mean, the speakers were all wonderful. And we all owe you a really big thank you. And I want to thank everyone who supported me for these last 2 years as well. So, but thank you, Ann. This was a terrific event.
And next year it'll be in person and we'll have food, right?
I hope so.
Yeah. So Connie, you're telling me there's someone else on, Debbie?
No, I was just telling everybody that Debbie Stigura is running for Rolling Hills Estate City Council. She's a good Democrat.
Okay, great.
Good friend of the club.
Good to know. Good to know. Okay, so we had only one announcement, but it was already made in terms of the JFK Awards, and that was made at the beginning. But go to our website. It's there's a link for the JFK Awards. And then we have Kathy Bradford to say our goodbye.
Yes, thank you everybody for coming today. I hope you enjoyed hearing from our local representatives. I also want to thank Ann and I for assembling this wonderful program. Reggie Jew is our technologist and our webmaster, and Carol Muller for helping with the co-hosting. Our next regular meeting is August 16th at 2:30, and it's a review of the 2019-2020 Supreme Court rulings hosted by Judge Tom Long. So everybody have a great evening.
Bye.
Okay. And
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. I think we didn't go over too long, and hopefully you all enjoyed the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reggie and Ann.